you're in a relationship and you find yourself getting blamed for everything, that means no matter what you say or do, you are the nag. You are always being selfish. Everything is about you. You should have known better. And no matter what you say or what you feel, or no matter how much you try, you feel like you're always getting blamed and you feel like you're stuck. The relationship gets into this circle, this whirlwind, this, maybe it feels like a tornado and you're just on this roundabout in this huge spin and you don't know what to do. And you know you're not doing anything malicious. And that's the part that throws you off, right? I'm not doing anything malicious. I'm not doing anything hurtful or harmful knowingly to my partner, but they still are not satisfied. So I want to talk about how to stop the blame game, how to get you off of this circle, how to get you off of this whirlwind, this circle that you are going on, because really it brings up stress, it brings up anxiety, it brings up distress, and it also just brings up a level of not being emotionally safe in a relationship. Now that can be really risky. Hi, I'm Charese Josie. I am a licensed clinical social worker. I'm also a women's leadership coach, and I work with the high achieving women. And I like to speak with women who are high achievers, either in your career, education, your entrepreneurs, your corporate execs, because oftentimes we don't have a place to go. Like, where do we go to talk about our relationships? We are the go-to person. We are the one that people come to when they need something, right? In this part, if we feel like we're being blamed for everything, then we might feel like we're actually failing. And that's something that just doesn't sit right with us. So what happens is we start to try to fix it, right? And we try different things, whether we're doing something, house-wise, right? We're doing more in the house. Maybe we're trying to be romantic, maybe something sexual, maybe financial. In any ways, we just want to make it better. We want to feel better. But what is it that you actually want to be better? Is it you? Is it the relationship? Or is it the situation? So one of the things of how to get off this blame game is first knowing what exactly is it that you're trying to get off. What is it that you're trying to fix? Now, normally when we're in it, we just want it better, right? But knowing exactly where to put the better might be helpful. So let's start with, maybe you may think that one of the things that you want to make better is the relationship, right? That's usually what we think. We want the relationship to get better. So when you think about the relationship and you're having these conversations and you're having these discussions, is the discussions about the relationship, or is it about you, or is it about your partner? That's the part that we need to shift. It's about the relationship, then make the relationship the problem, not your partner, not even you. So anytime you're having a discussion with your partner and you're talking about whatever's going on and you're talking about how to make it better, your conversation is about, I want to make this relationship better, right? And what is it about the relationship that is stress? What is stressing the relationship? If it's finances, can we work out a budget together? Maybe we need to shift how we're doing our finances. Let's look at how much we're spending and how much we're bringing in for a whole month. And it's not to say, hey, you're spending too much on this, or hey, I need to cut back on this, or hey, look this. We're just doing this together as a unit. Why? Because the relationship is the problem, not you or not your partner. So maybe it might be, you might feel like, you know what, the problem is my partner, right? Maybe the issue actually is my partner. What is it about your partner that's actually the problem? And so as a therapist, I hear this a lot about, my partner's not doing this, my partner's not doing that. And I always have this discussion, well, what is it about that that's offensive to who you are, right? Because people don't typically will deal and stay in a relationship of something that we know is strictly about them. So let me give you an example. If we're in a relationship and we say, wait a minute, this person does not have a good character. Whatever that means to you, you get to define it. You just might say they're just not of good character. I don't want to be with them. Most of us have had exes before, right? If you had an ex before, if you think back to an ex, you'll say, no, this person is just not good for me. They're just not of a good character. All right. But maybe if you're in a relationship, and this doesn't even matter if you're married, because there's divorces, people get divorced. But if you're in a relationship and you're still trying to fight this, you're still trying to figure it out, maybe it might be something within you that's gotten triggered, and that's actually the conversation, right? And this is something to get you off of this blame circle that you might be in with your partner. You said, you know what? The part is not what you said. Maybe it's how you said it. And how you said it reminded me of how my dad treated me. How you said it reminded me of how my mom treated me. And then you say, you know what, if you want to have a conversation with me, I'm more than willing and helpful and to talk to you about it. Let's have a conversation. Right now you're putting it back on the relationship, but I just need you to be mindful of your tone. I also will tell women to have a conversation or be mindful of a height difference. A lot of times in male and female relationships, in that partnership, there's a height differential, right? Usually the male is taller. Usually he's stronger. Sometimes he weighs more, right? And if that is the case in your relationship where there's a height differential, like my husband's a whole foot taller than me. So if we're having a heated conversation or discussion or something that we know that's kind of one of those hard and difficult conversations, I need to talk sitting down. He can't tower over me because he's a whole foot taller than me. It inadvertently brings a level of unequal power. And if we're talking about the relationship and building and addressing the relationship, well, then we need to be on the same footing. We need to be together as we talk about this. So let's sit down and have that conversation. That's a good way to put it back on the relationship, right? Another thing, this is the third thing to do, is to write down any feelings that are coming up with the relationship in terms of the blame game, right? What hurt is coming up for you? What is there trust that's coming up for you that reminds you of something in the past? Is there a sense of heaviness? Where does that stem from? Are you feeling pressure? Are you feeling anxious? What's coming up for you, right? And so maybe when you say, well, you know what, it may feel like it's my partner because they're triggering me, but what are they triggering, right? And you get to identify that. Now, do you have to know the whole thing? Do you have to have it all worked out? Absolutely not. We very rarely have anything all worked out. But we can say, you know what, I realize now when you yell at me or you raise your voice, I get upset. When you ask me, hey, how come I don't have any white clothes? I feel like I'm not handling my business as a spouse. It makes me feel like I just dropped the ball like I'm feeling. And maybe the last thing you want to do is feel like you're feeling, right? Maybe that's what's coming up for you. Where does that stem from? Because it probably didn't start with your spouse. It may have actually started somewhere in your childhood where you were expected to know things, to be all things, that people relied on you so much that for you to do anything less than that just did not sit well with you. Right? So maybe you identify where that hurt is and that anxiety. And maybe that's the part you're communicating with your spouse. Now, what your spouse will hear is, one, oh, there's some level of responsibility, some accountability. Maybe your spouse may feel less defensive about it. And now you two can get back to making the relationship the issue and not each other and get off that. The other thing that might be triggered is failed expectations. Right? Sometimes we have an expectation of our spouse that they're going to be this certain person. So if you think back to when you all were together, when you first got together, maybe it was this whirlwind fairy tale. You laughed a lot. You went out a lot. You had fun together. There was less pressure, right? There was less responsibility and accountability for each other. And so then as you all get older, you get into years, maybe you had some kids, maybe life stressors came, maybe there was even grief. And so now how you two are dealing with that is a whole different level of component that's been added to your relationship that neither one of you expected. And you're like, wait, I thought that you were always going to be there for me. I thought I was always going to feel safe with you, right? And maybe your partner's thinking like, what happened? What did I do? But remember, there's something that's new that has been added to your relationship that hasn't been defined yet. Good news. Y'all have a great opportunity now to sit down and figure out how are we going to address this. You know, maybe I have grief over a friendship loss or a family member loss, a job loss, financial changes, housing changes, any of those things. Maybe you might feel a little, uneasy about that. Now you're another way that you're getting back to making the relationship the issue and not your spouse. And you're also having a good conversation with your spouse about how to do that, right? And so I also want to talk about, before we kind of shift, I want to talk about sometimes in relationships, we really don't want the relationship to get better. Right? We really just don't. We know that it's hard to leave, but it's also very hard to stay. And so sometimes we have these arguments because we just don't know what else to do, but we might know the relationship just isn't good for us. So if that's what you're feeling, if that's what you're experiencing, what I just want you to own that. I just want you to know and say, you know what? I don't want this, and for me to leave feels scared. I really feel scared to leave, right? And there's a book that's called Too Good to Stay, Too Bad to Leave, or something like that. Look up that book. It's a really good book to help us feel unstuck in relationships. But if that's how you feel, one, just own it to yourself. If you're not ready to share it with your spouse, that's okay. But the more authentic you are to you is the more helpful that you can show up in the relationship authentically. So what happens if you really know you don't want the relationship, you're just too scared to leave, what you want to do is leave in peace. You want to leave with emotional peace and clarity, and you want to have more clarification about the relationship. So once you admit it to yourself, that might be helpful, right? And so if your partner has difficulty accepting any type of responsibility in a relationship, and you're like, see, this is what happens, and that's what you use to kind of fuel the argument, and you use those types of things, acknowledge some things, right? You can just even say, like, hey, I know this is too heavy for you, right? This seems to be a lot of pressure for you. You're acknowledging what's going on. In your mind, you're also acknowledging, I'm not sure if I want the relationship. I feel stuck, but let me make sure. And what do you want to make sure of? I want to see if I can still feel emotionally safe in this relationship, even though I feel like I want to go, right? And so acknowledge where your partner is. See how he handles that, right? Maybe your partner may feel guilt-ridden about some of the experiences in your relationship. And so when you bring it up, or you have some residual effects of it, and they're noticing that it's the guilt thing that's coming up, usually guilt is met with anger and frustration and low patience. And you might just say, hey, listen, I'm having a hard time with this. I'm having a challenging time with the way you're responding. I'm going to go in the other room and watch TV for a bit. I'm going to go and get me some dinner and watch a show. Just say something that you're going to do in the time period, but your goal is to separate yourself. Why? Because you want your feelings to be validated the entire time. Right? And so the other thing, that your spouse does not want to be the problem, right? And guess what? Neither do you. This kind of goes back to what I was talking about earlier about making the relationship the problem and not each other, right? And say, is my spouse capable of making the relationship the problem and not making me feel blamed? Also good for you to know, am I even capable of not making my spouse the problem, and that I realize that I'm experiencing some things that I need to pay closer attention to? Maybe I need to pay more attention to how I feel and what I actually want, and is there emotional space for my spouse in my life, right? Do I want to create that? Do I want to explore that anymore? You don't have to necessarily know the answer, but maybe just know what direction you want to go in might be helpful to both of you. Now, this also may be a good time to seek a professional. Seek a licensed therapist that might be able to help you navigating your relationship. And it's not to help you make the decision to stay or to go. It's saying, how do I feel about this person? Once I'm calm and we're not in the heat of this tornado of this blame game anymore, and we're both able to calm down, and I look at my spouse, what does my body tell me? How do I feel? And that you let a licensed professional help you navigate some of this uncertain territory that you're experiencing right now. So I hope these tips were helpful. Let me know in the comments how you feel about those tips, if any of them were helpful, and if so, which one was the most helpful for you and which one you'll try. Now, click subscribe. Videos drop every Monday. And I want to connect with my high-achieving grown women leaders so we can have some real relationship conversations and helping you to understand yourself a little bit more. And the goal here is transformation, not just information. So click the thumbs up with the like. Check the show notes, and there's some ways to connect with me. Also some things that can help you walk you through a specific issue. And it's a step-by-step 6-video series. So go ahead and check the link below, and I'll see you in the next video.